Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, is generating a lot of buzz as a potential head coach for the 2025 season.
He's a hot commodity.
He has some interesting choices ahead of him.
Since 2022, his offensive schemes have turned the Lions into a high-scoring team, making him very attractive to teams looking to boost their offensive firepower.
Last year, there were reports that he was interested in the Chicago Bears head coaching vacancy. Do you think that interest could still be there?
It's possible. The Bears have the #1 pick in the upcoming draft, and everyone expects them to go with quarterback Caleb Williams. The chance to develop a potential franchise quarterback like Williams could be a huge draw. I mean, think about it. He'd have the opportunity to build an offense tailored to Williams' strengths.
But the Bears fired their head coach, Matt Eberflus, mid-season after a rough 6-game losing streak. It was the first time in franchise history they'd ever done that.
Wow.
Does that signal a potential lack of stability within the organization?
Well, the Bears have never exactly been known for their patience. But firing Eberflus mid-season definitely raises questions about the power structure there, the roles of general manager Ryan Poles and team president Kevin Warren, and how much influence they each wield isn't really clear.
I see.
That kind of ambiguity might give potential candidates second thoughts.
There's also the issue of the Bears' current quarterback, Justin Fields. How do you see Johnson's offensive philosophy working with Fields' skill set if they decided to keep him?
That's a crucial point. Fields is a really dynamic athlete.
He is.
Strong arm, but he's had trouble with consistency. Johnson would have to figure out if he can tweak his system to get the most out of Fields' potential, or he needs to go in a totally different direction.
Let's switch gears and talk about another team that's rumored to be interested in Johnson, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They could be in the mix if they decide to part ways with their current head coach, Doug Peterson. Could Jacksonville be a more attractive destination for him?
It's definitely possible. The Jaguars are in the AFC South, which is generally considered a weaker division than the Bears' NFC North. That could mean an easier path to the playoffs. Plus, they've already got a talented roster in place. A lot of key pieces are already there.
And what about location? Does Jacksonville as a city hold more appeal to a potential coach than Chicago?
Well, you can't ignore the fact that Florida has no state income tax. And Jacksonville itself has a great market and fantastic weather. Those could be big selling points for a coach thinking about making a move.
Sure.
But of course, the Jaguars have their own set of challenges. Doug Patterson had a pretty good start in Jacksonville, won 17 of his first 28 games. But lately, he's hit a rough patch, losing 17 of his last 22.
That kind of slump definitely leads to questions about his future with the team. Would a change in coaching really benefit the Jaguars at this point?
It's a tough call. Patterson's a Super Bowl winning coach, right? He's got a proven track record. But these recent struggles, well, they make you wonder if he can turn things around. If he can get the team back on track, the Jaguars ownership has a big decision to make. Do they think he can right the ship, or is it time for a change?
And if the Jaguars do move on from Pederson, would Ben Johnson be the right fit for them?
Well, Johnson's offensive system leans heavily on a solid running game and play-action passing. And the Jaguars, well, they've got a talented young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence and a really strong offensive line. I mean, Johnson's system could absolutely flourish in Jacksonville.
But what about Johnson's coaching style? How would that mesh with the Jaguars' organizational culture?
The Jaguars have, well, let's just say they've had their fair share of instability at the head coaching position.
That for sure.
Johnson would really need to come in strong, establish a clear culture, and build that trust within the organization. It's essential.
Okay, let's circle back to the Bears for a minute. We talked about the appeal of working with Caleb Williams.
Right.
What else might draw Johnson to Chicago? What are the other factors?
Well, the Bears have an incredibly passionate fan base, and their history, well, it's legendary.
It is.
For a coach looking for a high-profile opportunity, I mean, the Bears offer a huge stage.
But they also play in a really tough division, right?
Oh, yeah.
With rivals like the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. Would that make the job more intimidating?
There's no doubt the NFC North is brutal. It's a real meat grinder. To be successful there, you need a coach who can build a team that can go toe-to-toe with those powerhouses.
So let's put the two teams side by side. What are the biggest advantages and disadvantages of each place for Ben Johnson?
With the Bears, you have the excitement of working with a potential star like Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And it's a high-profile job in a city that loves its football.
Definitely.
But it's also a tougher road to the playoffs in a division that's absolutely stacked.
Right.
And then there's the question of stability within the organization.
And with the Jaguars.
Well, the Jaguars, they've got a talented roster. Their division isn't quite as fierce. And maybe there's a bit more organizational stability there. But they don't have the same star power or the history that the Bears have. It's a trade-off.
So Johnson has a lot to weigh here. How much weight do you think each of these factors will carry for him?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Every coach is different. They all have their own priorities and things that matter most to them.
True.
Some guys, they just want to win. That's all they care about.
Yeah.
Others, they value stability above all else. And some, well, they want the spotlight.
What about Ben Johnson? What do you think matters most to him?
Only Ben Johnson knows that for sure. His decision will tell us a lot.
It will.
It'll show us what his ambitions are, what kind of coach he sees himself as. It's a big moment.
His choice will have a major impact, not just on his career, but on the futures of these franchises.
Exactly.
How do you think this whole coaching carousel is going to play out? What's your prediction?
Well, I'm no fortune teller. Trying to predict the future is a fool's game. But one thing is for sure, the NFL coaching carousel is a wild ride.
It is.
It's like a high-stakes game of musical chairs. And it's not just the coach's futures that are on the line. It's the players' hopes and dreams. It's the fans' expectations. It's everything.
It's the drama that keeps us coming back. It's a lot for any coach to consider. What specific things might tip the scales for Johnson?
I think roster composition is huge. If a team has established players or young talent with a lot of potential, that could be a major factor in his decision.
And of course, the salary cap situation for both teams is important. A team with more financial flexibility might be more attractive.
Definitely. He'll want to know how much room he'll have to maneuver.
He might also be thinking about the overall direction of each franchise. Is the team in rebuilding mode, or are they looking to win now?
Absolutely. That's a fundamental question any coach has to ask. Where does the team see itself, and does that align with my vision?
Even things like geographic location and the fan base could come into play.
Those can have a big impact on a coach's quality of life and the kind of pressure they're under.
Ben Johnson has a lot to think about in the coming weeks. This is a pivotal moment in his career.
No doubt about it.
His choice will have a big impact, not just on his own future, but on the teams involved. Where do you think he'll end up? What's your gut feeling?
Well, like I said, I'm not a fortune teller, but whatever he decides, it'll tell us a lot about him, about what he values as a coach. It'll be interesting to watch how this all unfolds and see what kind of impact his decision has on the league.
It's going to be an exciting offseason. Until next time, goodbye.